I have seen credit card rates recently as high as 28, 29%. This is a killer.
Recessions are a normal part. They're a natural and healthy part of the way the economy functions. So if we think about the economy as a wave, right? Like up and down.
If you are in the accumulation phase and you are saving to your retirement plan, when the market is down, it is on sale.
Like we were built for this. Like you faced way worse than this.
And please, please, please do not try to time the market, get out, go to cash, and wait for things to feel better. Hello, hello, welcome back.
Hello, good to see you.
Good to see you too. Should I say bonjour, mon amour?
Oh, bonjour, mon amour.
Bonjour, mon amour.
Comment ça va?
Ça va bien? Et toi? That's about as far as I got.
That's as far as we can go.
Yeah. It was I'll tell you more about this in a moment, but people
Yeah.
like when they think you speak and then they go off and you're like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, I don't actually
Whoa.
speak. I was just joking."
I only perfected
Rewind.
the accent for those 3
Just
phrases. That's all I got.
That's it. Exactly. Welcome back, everyone, to Living Richly with Curo, episode number 53. My name is Anne McCabe. I am the CEO and a partner here at Curo Private Wealth. And I'm joined, as always, by my lovely, I was going to say something in French, but can't do it, co-host, Atricia.
Hello, viewers and listeners. I'm Atricia Roberts, COO and partner here at Curo. Thanks for either joining us for the first time or for coming back.
Yes, we appreciate all of the above, the OGers and the newcomers. We're grateful for all of you. So
Absolutely.
if this is your first time, or if you are coming back, you know that our goal always here, as well as what we do in our daily jobs, is to educate, inspire. We like to entertain a little bit. Also, everybody who listens on their financial journeys. And today we're going to be talking about a really important topic, which is how do we prepare for a recession? You
Dun,
can't,
dun, dun.
dun, dun, dun. You can't go anywhere right now without hearing about recession. So we are going to break down, first of all, what is a recession? Second of all, we're going to share some interesting statistics and information about recessions that may surprise you because there is a lot of misinformation out there about recessions. And then most importantly, we're going to talk about, okay, if we have a recession this year, what should we do in anticipation to prepare ourselves? So that is our topic of the day. But as we always love to do, we are going to do an 18 catch up.
Me first?
Yes, you first. What is
Sure.
up? What's
We'll
up?
we'll save the best for last this week. So, things have been really busy, but, just kind of trying to stay positive and get some out of office time when I can. So again, I shared with you right before we started recording, golf season's in full swing for us now, or for me now, and I'm actually going to play for the first time outside of my lessons this afternoon, which will be nice, even though the weather here in the DC area decided to be warm and humid.
Yeah.
Even though
very
it's been
warm.
great.
Yep.
It's been great for the past few days, and now we get the humidity today, but all good. So doing the Wine and Nine event at
Ooh.
Montgomery County, which is specifically for women. Montgomery County Chorus is hosted, and your registration comes with 2 drink tickets, which is always nice.
Always nice. And so important
So
for golf because you got to like relax.
yes,
Yeah. You got to
yes,
relax into
relax,
it.
get out of your head, and try to really have fun. So I'm excited about that today. But I'm also back from Las Vegas, where I attended the Academy for Preferred Financial Advisors sort of in-person session. So it was 2 days of just lots of intense training and information, really around practice management, specifically for financial advisors. So sharing that space, sharing ideas with advisors who have been in and around this business for decades. It's always nice to hear what they're doing, what's working for them, what's not working for them, which can also be helpful advice. So it was a good time for learning and development last week as well.
Yeah. I appreciate that. I
Of
appreciate
course.
you representing our firm as always.
I do what I can. I try not to embarrass you,
Never
show
do.
up as my best self.
Never do. Anytime I hear from people when you are representing us, they're always like, "Atricia is amazing. I love her." And I'm like, "I know. She's mine. She's taken. Sorry, you can't have her." Don't even
Yes,
try.
it was nice to be there. It was a great experience.
Yeah.
Lots of
Awesome.
information that we'll debrief on, I'm sure, over the next few weeks.
Yes, for sure. I can't wait. Can't wait to hear your notes.
Alrighty. Well, I'm excited about your catch up, your
Yes.
turn.
Yes. So I am also back from a couple of trips. The most recent, the reason I was speaking French at the beginning of the recording is I took my 13-year-old son to Paris for a few days, just one on one trip for it ended up being a joint birthday because both of our birthdays are in March, but this was his idea and his creation. And when he first presented it to me, I was like, "You're crazy. We're not doing that." And then the more I thought about it and spoke with you, who, you had been to Paris earlier this year, I was like, why not? And it was incredible. I think the most special part of it was just the 24/7 quality time with my 13-year-old son. We have a great relationship and he's a teenager. And so, spending one on one time with his mom, not at the top of his priority list right now in his life, which is totally fine and totally normal. But he was forced to have some great quality time with me. And it was just super fun. We had a nice balance of some things planned ahead of time and then like lots of free time where we could just spontaneously figure out what neighborhood we were in and what we wanted to check out. God bless, Google Maps and the internet. I don't know how people did it before. I guess I'd, tour books and guides, but it was just I love the city. The architecture is incredible. The people were super friendly. I know that's not always what you hear about visiting Paris, but we found the people to be very friendly, very helpful. Most people spoke English, so that was really helpful. And we got to see Julianne, our beloved Julianne, who
Hi,
we
Jay.
Jay sends her love to everybody. And so that was really cool to visit her and see her neighborhood and her amazing apartment and, see the rest of her family. The food was incredible and the wine was great. And it was just a really, really incredible experience. So I'm super grateful that we did it. I'm a huge believer in experiences over stuff. And this was his birthday present was this experience together. So it was really, really, really magical. Like just he was so grateful every day. He was like, "Mom, thank you so much. Thank you so much for
Oh,
this amazing trip. Like this is incredible. Thank you so much." Which is all a parent wants is for
right.
their kid to be grateful and understand how incredibly, fortunate and blessed he was to be able to do this. So it was
Fantastic.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you had a great experience. I'm also glad that you agree that the people were friendly.
Yeah.
That was my experience when I was there at the earlier part of the year. 'Cause people always tell me, "Oh, the French can be unfriendly," but I found everybody super warm and gracious and helpful when we were asking for directions. And I don't know, I thought it was nice and I had a nice time. So I'm glad to hear you agreed and that was your experience.
Yes. Yes. And my son specifically thanks you for the carrot recommendation. He said that hot chocolate was legit the best.
It's
So
amazing. Now you
it
can
looked
only
pretty
drink for
amazing.
me at this age, I could only manage, a few sips of it. It's so rich and so sweet, but it is the best hot chocolate I have ever
Yeah. Yeah. He
had.
was he was very grateful. I was like, "Teresa said we have to go to this place." So we did that after the Eiffel Tower because it was, right
Mhm.
there in the same
Yeah,
neighborhood. So yeah,
nice.
so
Oh, I'm
great,
glad
great
you
trip.
guys had a great trip.
Yeah, highly recommend. So of course
Yeah.
my 7-year-old now is like, "Where are we going for my birthday?" I'm like, "How's New York?" I'll take you
Right,
somewhere amazing when you're 13.
right. You're at the domestic trip range right now, age
Totally.
range. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So, good times. Experiences over stuff every day.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah. All right. Well, now that we've got our catch up done, let's talk about our topic du jour. Not such a fun topic to talk about, but hopefully we can again share some interesting information and help everybody prepare if we do end up getting a recession this year. So, why don't we kick off with some basics of
Mhm.
what is a recession? Because this is part of the misinformation that's out there is the actual definition of a recession. So a lot of people think that the definition of a recession is two consecutive quarters of negative GDP or gross domestic product. In this case, it would be a decline of two quarters, but that is actually not the official reading of a recession. So there is an organization called the National Bureau of Economic Research, NBER, and they are the official arbiters of recessions in the US. So not only do they look at is, GDP growth down, is it negative, but they look at a broad range of factors, things like employment and income and retail sales and industrial production, just to name a few. So it's not as easy as looking at GDP growth and saying, okay, yeah, we're officially in a recession. It's a much broader definition, and they try to understand, the possible duration and the depth of a recession before they officially call it. So it's a broader slowdown, I think, is an easier kind of way to define it. And this means that it's affecting real people and real jobs and, people's wallets. So that's the way that we are going to define recessions in general. That is what we believe the definition of a recession is, even though people talk about the two consecutive quarters of GDP, negative
Yeah.
GDP.
And I think even some more casual, just like consumers, have been referring to what we've been experiencing as a recession for years. Like since 2022. Like, oh yeah, because we're in a recession. I'm like, who told you? Who told you that?
Right.
Where'd you
Yeah.
get that information? So
Yeah. Well,
we're
that
gonna
was
help
why it
set
was
the
being.
record straight.
Yeah, exactly. And it was being called a vibe session, right? Because
Right.
yeah, because even though we weren't in an official economic recession, people were feeling so negative that people started calling it a vibe session because it was
Mhm.
like the vibes were down even though the economic data did not support a recession.
Right. So it's a weird thing. But so now we'll share a few interesting facts about recessions that may be surprising. The first one, and it's always important to set this context, is that recessions are a normal part. They're a natural and healthy part of the way the economy functions. So if we think about the economy as a wave, right? Like up and down, of course, there are times when you're going up the hill of that wave, but in natural waves, you have to correct and come back down. And as we experience that downward movement, we're going through a contraction and we eventually find ourselves into a recession. And that way, we start to work our way back up to the top. So, this is a normal and natural way of the way economies progress. And since World War II, the US has had 13 recessions. So to Ann's point about a vibe session, we like to call lots of things recessions when they're not. But since World War II, we've experienced 13 recessions. So that's about once every 6 years, if we think about it. So it's a really normal, natural part of our economy and our economic cycle. The average recession typically lasts about 10 to 11 months. Now, of course, some are longer, some are shorter because we average at 10 to 11. But typically, we see recessionary periods on average be less than a year. So even though things may feel worse, the economic data doesn't always necessarily support it. We typically see ourselves start to come out of recession within about a year. Another interesting fact is that the Great Recession of 2007, 2009 was one of the worst since the Great Depression. And it just, kind of times up when Ann and I were starting careers in this business, which is nice. But it lasted for 18 months and it led to more than 8 million jobs lost during that time. So that was one of the more deeper and painful recessions that we felt, but again, it lasted 18 months. And when you think of that in context of how often we experience bull markets or expansions in the economy, if you put it in that context, even the bigger, more painful recessions aren't necessarily as bad as they may seem. And then one of the shortest recessions that we saw was in 2020 during COVID, which lasted just about 2 months. And if you remember that time, the S&P 500 fell off a cliff very quickly. I mean, in a matter of days, I think we were in correction territory, if not even shorter than that. But then we very quickly saw a correction where we bounced off the bottom and came back up. So here's some reassuring news. Historically, after every recession, the market has not only recovered, but it's reached new highs. So while recessions are tough, we have to remember that they're temporary and they usually position us for really nice recovery periods.
Yeah, absolutely. They never feel great when we're going through them. They're painful by definition, but historically we've gotten through every single one of them. So
Yep,
that is
absolutely.
the good
And
news.
yep, and I think human nature is to hold on to the pain longer than we hang on to the pleasurable times, and I think that's why they seem longer than they actually are.
Yep, absolutely. All right. So, what should we do about this and how should we prepare if we do, in fact, get a recession this year in 2025? Our number one tip for everyone, and how often do we talk about the importance of cash reserves? I feel like pretty much every conversation we have about how to prepare for X, like how to prepare for a job loss, how to prepare for a possible recession, how to prepare for retirement. One of the first things we talk about is having appropriate cash reserves, emergency fund, whatever you want to call it. Go back to episode 4, in which we do a deep dive around our recommendations of how much cash is appropriate. But bottom line is, if you are still working, you want to have about 6 to 12 months worth of your expenses set aside in cash reserves. And if you are retired, we want to push that up to possibly closer to 2 years worth of your portfolio distributions that you need to take in cash reserves just in case we do hit a prolonged downturn. So that's number one, is make sure that you've got sufficient cash reserves. Number two, if you have high interest debt, so think credit cards. I have seen credit card rates recently as high as 28, 29%. This is a killer. So, no matter how much you are paying on this debt, it is absolutely like swimming upstream. And if we hit a downturn, and if God forbid you lose your job during a recession, it's going to be even more painful. So, take the time now to work out an aggressive plan to pay that high interest credit card off down as soon as possible. Number 3, look at your spending plan. So we like at Curo to call it a spending plan versus a budget, because who likes talking about a budget? Spending plan is much more pleasant. But take a look at your spending plan and see, look at your needs versus your wants and see, are there any areas, perhaps subscriptions that you're paying for that you don't actually need, or maybe you're dining out, or door dashing or Uber Eatsing too much. So look at these categories and at least identify what are the categories that if you need to pare back spending, you could easily cut those out. And while you're at it, why don't you give yourself the extra challenge of actually, cutting them out if, again, they're not necessary parts of your spending plan? So that's number 3. Number 4, from an investment standpoint, when we're going through these downturns, we highly recommend for long-term investors, assuming you have a nice, good, diversified portfolio, stay invested and do not panic, because we cannot tell you the amount of people who make an emotional, irrational, quick decision when things are going crazy around us, when it's very scary and there's a lot of uncertainty. Human nature is to want to react, to want to do something to stop the pain. And so a lot of investors sell out of their investments, out of their portfolios, and go to cash, or they'll stop funding their 401k contributions because the market is down. That is the exact reverse of what we want you to do when there is a downturn. If you are in the accumulation phase and you are saving to your retirement plan, when the market is down, it is on sale. So, assuming you have the cash flow and you can swing it, we would encourage you to continue to make those retirement plan contributions. And please, please, please do not try to time the market, get out, go to cash, and wait for things to feel better, because in our experience, it is an impossible thing to do to time the market. And as we've talked about before, making the decision of when to get out and then when to get back in is nearly impossible. And then lastly, number five, focus on making yourself as marketable as possible. So make sure your resume is sharp and up to date in case you need to use it. Build your network and invest in yourself in learning skills or sharpening your skills so that in the event that you are let go, laid off, you are marketable. So you can easily and quickly get out there and find a new job. So this is the time, because we are not officially in recession yet. This is the time to be making sure that you are sharpening your saw as much as possible and making yourself super marketable so that you can have a soft landing if we hit a big downturn.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like a lot of these tips we have given in different capacities and
Yeah,
different topics. I feel like
for sure.
our living richly with Curo merchandise will say, "Do you have an emergency fund?"
Yeah, exactly. Like, here are five tips for any challenging situation you may be going through.
Yeah, but the I think the point is that just good sound financial planning helps gets us through a lot of different environments and times, and I think it's really important for people to remember that. Like if you start with a sound plan, then you don't have to react and you don't have to panic. Um,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
all very
exactly.
good tips.
Yeah, we were meeting with a client yesterday for a review, and the wife had lost her job. The husband was still working, and the she had just like this amount of calm to her. And the reason
Hmm.
is, and I've always complimented them about this. They've always lived way beyond, or way below rather, their means, and they have plenty of cash reserves, no high interest debt, lots saved for retirement. They're still relatively young, and she's in a position where she can be picky and not have to be desperate and rush into a job. And she was like, I'm just enjoying this time off, which, what a blessing. Whereas if you don't have that cushion, you don't have the cash reserves, you're not going to be able to enjoy the time off like, she is able to enjoy this time off. So it was just a great reminder. And, again, I congratulated them for the decisions that they've been making for the past number of years, because they are in a position where they can enjoy her time off and, relax and know that it will all work out. And they're not scrambling to take whatever job comes her way.
Right. She's enjoying the sabbatical and it, doesn't go
Exactly.
fire sale.
Right. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Great story to share too.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we'll look ahead and we'll just kind of talk about what economists are saying about 2025. So at the start of last year, 2024, recession fears were running high, but by mid 2024, inflation had cooled and the US consumer and job market remained surprisingly strong, and we avoided recession in 2024. Now, at the end of this April, the conference board did revise down our US gross domestic product or GDP forecast for this year due to the impact of the trade laws, potential higher inflation, supply chain disruptions, less investing, spending, and weaker labor market.
The list is
Though they
long.
right, though they say they don't believe that a recession is about to start. And remember, again, as Anne reminded us at the top of this episode, that recession is more than just about 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth. The Federal Reserve's economic projections still suggest a soft landing. And as a reminder, that just means we were able to cool inflation without sending the economy into recession, though that they are definitely now being a bit more cautious and have adopted a wait and see approach. But their forecast is still that we will find ourselves in a soft landing scenario. JP Morgan, which is a big asset manager here, well known in this country and around the world, has raised their probability of a recession this year from 40% to 60% due to aggressive tariff policy. So there's lots of uncertainty going on, and it's why we've seen more market volatility than we've had in recent years because of that uncertainty. But again, to reiterate, if you start with a sound plan and you're prepared, no matter what happens, whether we do find ourselves into some recession or not, you will be prepared. And that's what we're trying to help you do. So, as of the day of this recording, we did get a first quarter GDP growth report that showed the economy contracted for the first time in 3 years. But this was expected for the most part, as we saw a surge in imports ahead of the tariff implementation. So again, not to get too geeky about GDP calculation around, but there is a trade balance that's a part of that, how much we're importing versus how much we're exporting, that factors into that growth or contraction. And because we think of people getting ahead of tariffs for imports, we did see a huge surge in the first quarter, which may have led to some of that GDP contraction.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think just to kind of double click on a point you made, Teresa, one of the things in us sharing the Conference Board of the Federal Reserve and JP Morgan, and we could have picked, any other
Mhm.
three organizations, but the point is that these are very smart people, first of all. Second of all, they have access to a lot of information. And yet these are three organizations or, parts of the government that are coming up with different conclusions. And this is why it is very, very hard slash impossible to predict exactly how this is all going to shake out, and why we try to give you all tactical recommendations and advice about going back to that sound foundation, like Atricia was talking about, the sound plan, because none of us have a crystal ball. None of us know exactly how this is going to shake out. Uncertainty is a constant in our lives, and certainly in the financial markets we realize there is more uncertainty now than normally there is, but there is always uncertainty, right? And think about anything that you've gone through in your life that was unexpected. I would assume that most of us have had something occur in our lives that was unexpected. So these things happen, and all we can do is prepare and plan the best that we can. We can't try to pretend that we know exactly what the future holds, but we can prepare. And that is the message we want to send you all, is preparation is key here.
Yes, absolutely. And we'll get through it, right? I think Anne said it maybe a couple episodes ago. This too shall pass. We'll get through
This
it
too
like
shall
we've gone
pass.
through other difficult and challenging times before.
Yep, exactly. It's like I tell my kids, you have gotten through 100% of the hard times, 100% of the hard days, 100% of the crappy days. You've gotten through 100% of
Yeah.
them. So you're going to get through this one too.
Yep. That's an amazing success rate. So,
Yeah, exactly. How many people can say they have a 100% success rate? Pretty impressive.
yeah.
All right, y'all. Well, we hope this is helpful. And before we go into our closing thought, just want to do a little housekeeping. We have been getting some awesome questions coming in. So thank you all for those. As a reminder, if you have a question that you would like for us to answer on the podcast, send that into podcast@curoprivatewealth.com. If we choose your question and answer it on the episode, we will send you an Amazon gift card as a thank you. So make sure to send those questions in. Also, keep the likes coming, the comments, and make sure to subscribe so that you are alerted when we drop new episodes, which is every Friday. So, with that housekeeping out of the way, let's go to our closing thought of the day. So, Atricia, what do you have for us as a closing thought?
Yeah, so we've come and been working through some pretty challenging times with what's been happening. I've been saying between the tariffs and taxes, right? April sort of rocked us, right? And I think a lot of investors have felt that. But one thing I always like to remind our team here and when we talk to other people, this is what we're built for, right? We do all of the training, even if you think about it from a fitness perspective, right? You train and you get ready so that you are prepared to tackle these kinds of times. So this is what we do, right? And I think I shared that message with our team on Monday. Like, yeah, things get hard, we get busy, but this is what we've prepared for. This is what we do. And I think if we face challenges that way, going into them as this is the thing I've trained for, right? This is what I do. I'm a warrior, or whatever it is you want to call yourself going into these difficult or hard times. I think even just changing that mindset makes them easier to manage and to deal with. So it's also the thing I try to remind myself of, right? Like you were built for this. Like you faced way worse than this. And to the point where you shared with your kids, if I can come through that, this is a cakewalk, right? So I had a sort of a conversation with our team on Monday, just helping to sort of remind us of that, right? Like these are the things that we've trained for. These are the things that we're built for. And even when they get tough and challenging, we should be prepared, right? We face them head on and we just power our way through them. Not to mean that we don't take care of ourselves in the process, right? We don't ignore what we're experiencing, but we just know with confidence as we come through challenging times that we're prepared for this, we can handle it, and we're going to get through it.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is why we as a firm exist, right? I mean, the reality is that if the markets just went up and to the right consistently with no pullback, nobody would really need us. It would be super. Number one, we wouldn't make any money because if it
Right.
were that easy, part of making good money in the markets is you have to have some uncertainty and some level of risk. But this is why we exist as a firm. I mean, this is why people hire us, is to be a sounding board and to give advice, especially during the hard times. So I think that's fantastic. My closing thought, which is, coming off a couple of trips, probably not surprising. My closing thought is take the trip. And take the trip doesn't necessarily have to mean an actual trip. It can be have the experience, but in reflecting on some of the most incredible trips that I've taken, this one with my 13-year-old, and then a trip to Dubai with my sister 4 months before she passed away. In each of those trips, I remember questioning whether I should go. Back before my sister passed, work was really crazy. And I don't remember exactly why I didn't think I, could swing it, but I remember like questioning whether I should go and just being so grateful. Obviously, I didn't know she was going to pass 4 months later, but just being so grateful that we did the trip and we had the experiences, and I have pictures that I can look back on and just amazing memories. And same with this trip with my son. The markets are going crazy. It's a terrible time to leave. We're just through tax season and we have a lot going on, and part of me was like, oh my gosh, being away from the office right now is going to be not ideal. But everything was fine. We have an amazing team, including my incredible partner here, for whom I'm very grateful. And everything was great and fine, and I'll never regret creating those memories and having that experience with him. It's something he and I are going to remember forever. So that's my closing thought. Take the trip. And again, that could be an experience. Do the things, because regret is a very painful feeling. It is a very painful feeling, and we only have one life to live. And time on this earth is fleeting and short when you think about it. So it's important to have those experiences and build those memories.
Yeah, that's wonderful. No one ever wants to have to say, I wish I had, right? I
Right.
wish I had done this. I wish I had gone there. And again, this is what we're built for. This is why you have a partner, right? So
I
that you
know.
can take the trip and know
Exactly.
that everything is going to be okay. We were prepared for you to be away.
Yes. Yes, I know. And Atricia was so kind to remind me multiple times that everything would be okay. And our team,
Yeah,
it's awesome. And that's why we have a team, right? So that we can
right.
go away and disconnect. I didn't check email once when I was there, and it
I'm
was
so proud of you.
just so present. Yeah, it was like, I am going to be present for as much as I possibly can. And he wasn't on his phone hardly at all either, which for a
Hmm.
teenager is, quite shocking. So
Yeah.
it was good. Yeah. All right, y'all. Well, thank you again for tuning in. Always lovely to spend time with you. We will see you back here next Friday for a new episode. And until then,
Live richly.
thanks again for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to subscribe and share it with someone who might benefit from it. Friendly reminder that this is for informational purposes only. For additional information, please visit us at www.curoprivatewealth.com. Until next time, live richly.